أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear brothers, sisters and elders of MKSI Leicester and viewers of the live interactive session, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Bahlul Society interactive session with Sheikh Anwar Jaffer. The topic of tonight's discussion is titled How to Continue the Spiritual Growth that One May Have Gained in the Month of Ramadan. A question that I'm sure you'll agree is an age-old question that one must ask himself or herself every single Ramadan, every single month, but one that has many practical applications and a question that must be reflected upon. We are joined with our respected Sheikh Anwar Jaffer. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum salam, Muhammad. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm keeping well. It's good to see you back on MKSI live feed after
Ahsant.
15 days.
Ahsant.
How were your sessions with the Birmingham Jamaat?
Alhamdulillah, so far so good. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Well, it's great to have you here. Just for the benefit of the viewers, we'll go over the structure of the interactive session.
Sure.
We will start off with a 3 to 5 minute introduction on the topic by yourself, which will be followed by some questions. For the benefit of the viewers, please do message me any questions. So that's on 078 320 25003. I'll repeat 078 320 25003, or use the live chat function on the YouTube channel. And then towards the end, we will end with a beautiful recitation by a very local reciter whose identity I shall keep in suspense until time permits. So, Sheikh, this is over to you. If you could kind of introduce us with the understanding of what we mean when we ask ourselves the question as how we can continue the spirituality that we've gained in the holy month of Ramadan.
Ahsant. So it's a very interesting question. When you turn towards the Holy Quran, especially when the Quran talks about Ramadan, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, in those sets of verses, what the Quran does is it talks about the month of Ramadan, and it mentions it describes it by saying أيام معدودات. It's specified days. So you have a specified amount of days in the year, which is known as شهر Ramadan. And of course, when you refer to the riwayat of the Holy Prophet, when he speaks about Ramadan, he says that he makes it categorically clear that the month of Ramadan is not like any other month. And when Allah specifies a number of days in the year as Shahr Ramadan, what's happening here is that there is a specific distinguishment being mentioned. It's as if the month of Ramadan reintroduces Islam to us. It reintroduces the way we should live according to the Islamic understanding, right? It resuscitates our hearts. It revives our hearts. So the simple example that I can give is that because we're now towards the end of the month of Ramadan, do you not all feel spiritual or better compared to you were before entering the month of Ramadan? Do you not feel closer to God compared to before the month of Ramadan? And the answer is yes. And the reason why is because the spirituality of this month. You see, when you go back to the hadith of the Holy Prophet, the Prophet makes it clear. The hours are not like the other hours. The days are not like the other days. The month of Ramadan is not like any other month, right? Breathing in itself is ibadah. Sleeping in itself is ibadah. So it's a special month which is boosted with extra spirituality. It's like there's a hidden hand at play here, right? And the scholars talk about this, and it's a very interesting discussion. It's a separate discussion, but let me just hint towards it, that there is a correlation between the body and the soul. And if a person wishes to enhance his spiritual capacity, then obviously he has to compromise on his bodily needs. He needs to compromise on some of his desires. Whereas a person who constantly acts on his desires, physical dunyawi desires, then you'll see that this person is not a very spiritual person. Spirituality, the enhancements of spirituality always comes with a compromisation of one's desires, one's whims, right? And if you look at the month of Ramadan, we've cut our drinking, we've cut our eating, we've cut, for example, other things that we usually act upon. Um, And all of this is willingly. And we don't see the effects during the introductory days, but when you get towards the end of Ramadan, you say to yourself, okay, I haven't eaten or drunk anything for many, many hours during this month, and I feel strong, I feel spiritually boosted, right? So there's always that trade-off. When you focus on compromising your bodily needs, then your spiritual self will be enhanced. And not only that, but we engage in du'as, and we engage in Quran, we engage in community work. And a big shout out to the community, for coming up with interesting solutions to the problems that we're facing currently. Going to all of the different households and giving iftar to them. Obviously, we can't have iftar in the community, but why not bring iftar to their homes? So, Alhamdulillah, we have many people in the community who have been engaged in community work. All of this is ibadah. And this it's interesting because this Ramadan has been the hardest Ramadan. There's no shadow of a doubt in that. And the reason being is because usually in all of the years before, in the previous years, we've constantly been busy. We go to work, we come to the mosque, we go after mosque, chill out with friends, or you know. But this Ramadan, everyone has stayed home, and it's very hard to try and pass the time, especially when you're stuck at home. So it's been very, very difficult in this way. But, including myself, I was very worried as to how we're going to spend this Ramadan. But then again, it goes back to the concept of the hidden hand. God always looks after us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks after us, and He caters for our needs. And look, time has gone past so rapidly, so quickly, that you think about the good things. You think about, you build memories on the good things in the month of Ramadan. All of the troubles and all of the um, challenges that we saw in this month, we don't really think about them. We don't care about them. They came and they went. But the memories, the good things, that's the things that we remember. Just today, I was talking to a friend, and he said, there were 1 or 2 days that I found challenging. Out of the entire month, 1 or 2 days is nothing. And it's not something that we tend to remember, anyways. So it's interesting. Now, going back to your question about spirituality, what do you think? What do you think about spirituality? What's the meaning of being spiritual?
In a personal sense, I would uh, perhaps compartmentalize spirituality in the way that you gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a state that you feel from your heart. However, I know that this notion of spirituality is a conflated kind of notion, and it can be quite complicated none the least.
Yeah.
And I think the question is more like, where is it that we can gain spirituality? I think in the month of Ramadan, we were blessed with the recitation of many du'as, the recitation of the Holy Quran. And perhaps one may feel that maybe those are one ways that we can reach spirituality. But the whole notion of spirituality seems a little aloof and a little more comprehensive
Yeah.
than that.
So exactly as you said, spirituality is a state, right? It's not a feeling. Now, a lot of people try and misrepresent the whole concept of spirituality to be a feeling. It's not a feeling. Sometimes you come to the mosque and you listen to a very good reciter reciting dua, or you listen to a very good lecture, and then you'll have people saying, "Oh, I feel spiritual." No, that's not spirituality, right? That's just a feeling. Feelings come and go. Feelings fluctuate. Um, you'll have a person who, for example, drinks alcohol and feels spiritual, right? And we've seen this. I had a friend who, for example, who traced these words back to a documentary where he said that I was watching a documentary where this person was, manufacturing his own alcohol, stamping on the grapes and, fermenting the liquid and whatnot. And then in the end, when he takes a sip from his own alcohol, he says, "Oh, I feel very spiritual because I feel connected to the earth." Spirituality is not a feeling. Spirituality is a state. And interestingly, the Quran talks about this, right? كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون, so that you may be, fasting has been prescribed for you. Act on it, uh, act on it, and so that you may be from amongst those who are pious, from those who are God conscious. God consciousness. To have taqwa is the state of spirituality, right? You could be sitting in your own home, sitting on your couch, flicking through the different channels on TV, and still be spiritual, right? You could be, for example, working as an accountant or as a doctor and be in the state of spirituality. Spirituality is not a feeling; it's a state that you live in. And people often ask, then how do I get to this state? The state that you in the spiritual state literally means that you stay away from the haram and you adhere to that which is wajib. When you go visit the Maraja today, for example, as many have done so in the previous, decades, when they ask, that one piece of advice, you as a person who studied Deen for so many years and decades, what piece of advice do you have for me? And usually, many a times, they'll say, adhere to the wajibat and refrain from that which is haram. It's as simple as that. We only have a few handful things or items which are considered to be haram, and yet it's very difficult for us to stay away from. Um, Whereas at the same time, there's only a few handful of things that are wajib, and yet they're very hard and difficult to adhere to. When a person masters this, he then enters a state of spirituality. Now, I think one of the things that, again, it's a very interesting discussion, is that people don't have the patience for it, right? People don't want to wait to have spirituality. Spirituality, I remember scholars, they tend to give this example. It's like planting a specific plant. When you put the seed in, you make sure the land is fertile, you make sure that there's enough water, sunlight. When all of these different shurut and conditions come together, then you will see growth in the plant. And you won't see the growth come in overnight. It will take time. And when it does come out, when it springs out from the earth, then you see how beautiful the flower is or how beautiful the plant is. Spirituality is the same thing, right? These actions that we perform, it's like we're planting that seed, and it takes time for it to nurture, it takes time for it to grow. And when it does grow, you realize, okay, now I feel that I am a spiritual person. And all of that stems from the idea of refraining from that which is haram and adhering to that which is wajib. A state higher than this is obviously, um, this particular state is the state of taqwa, but then a state higher than taqwa is the state which is known as al-wara. Interestingly, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, towards the end of the sermon of the Holy Prophet, he asks the Prophet a question. He says, Ya Rasulullah, the out of all of the actions that you've mentioned regarding the month of Ramadan, which action is considered to be the best? So, the Prophet talks about salah and
Yeah.
zakat and charity and silat al-raham and all of this. And then towards the end, the Imam says to him, okay, despite all of these actions, which is the best? To which the Prophet says, al-maharim, al-wara' anil maharim al-akhlaq, to be conscious, to be in a state where you absolutely refrain from everything that Allah has made haram. Now, scholars interpreted this and said, a state higher than taqwa is a state where you embrace the mustahabbat and you try and refrain from the makruhat as well, right? So spirituality is a state, it's not a feeling.
Okay.
This is something that I think we need to be mindful of, and it obviously takes time to reach that particular state.
Jazakallah for that. And for the benefits of our viewers, if you allow me to kind of summarize this in a sentence and perhaps add to it, would you then state that spirituality is therefore a state which one nurtures, just like one nurtures a plant, and it takes a lot of growth,
Yeah,
and the highest of that state is achieved by the state known as wara, which is consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and staying away from all that he has made haram, and then practicing it even further when it comes to mustahabbat, and staying away from any makruhats.
yeah, absolutely spot on,
Brilliant.
absolute spot on.
Jazakallah. Thank you for that wonderful explanation.
So,
So I guess now that we've covered our foundation and we've answered exactly, or tried to understand in its basic form, what we mean by the state of spirituality, and the cognizance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I guess the other question that would be quite useful for us to understand in the question that Behlul Society has posed yourself, is how to continue the spirituality gained in Ramadan. What if, and this is a question that someone just WhatsApped myself. It is, what if someone feels that they haven't actually gained much from the month of Ramadan. And this goes back to the traditions from the Ahlul Bayt that for some Ramadan might just be physical abstaining from food and water. And so the question continues, how do they assess that and build upon themselves?
Right. So, what if a person doesn't feel that they've gained much, right?
Yes. Yeah.
First of all, try and keep a positive mindset. Yeah, having a
Okay.
positive mindset is absolutely vital. Do not allow any negativity play a role in your lives, determining how poorly you've done, right? Negativity doesn't have a role in our lives unless and until it allows us to better ourselves, right? Um, Again, if you reference back to the sermon of the Holy Prophet of Islam, when he speaks about the month of Ramadan, as I just mentioned, he talks about how there's a difference between voluntary actions and non voluntary actions. So, voluntary actions is when I actually have the free will and the thought and the niyyah to do something. Eating, drinking, what I eat, what I drink, for example. What actions do I do? What decisions I make throughout the day? All of these are voluntary actions. And then you have the non voluntary actions, right? So, breathing is, I don't think about breathing.
Mm.
Sleeping, I don't think about sleeping either, right? As well, when you're looking at the 7 or 8 hours when I'm completely knocked out for the night, or for example, when it comes to areas of, you know, other involuntary actions that my body goes through, for example, the digestive system and so on and so forth. When you look at breathing and sleeping, Rasulullah says you're getting rewarded for it, right? So even though you're not actively thinking about it, it's ibadah. Ibadah deserves a reward. And every time I take a breath in the month of Ramadan, I'm moving closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because that is the whole purpose of ibadah, of His worship. So even though you may feel that you've not done much in the month of Ramadan, there is a lot going on in the background that we're not aware of, right? So even though I've not thought about sitting down reciting Dua Iftatah, for example, there are many other ways I'm getting reward from, or there are many other avenues that I'm being rewarded from. And it always gives us solace to think about that, right? Um, when you look at, for example, the different demographics in any community, you'll have people who are from the youths. The youths have a lot of time in their hands, especially now. Um, they have the ability to recite as much Quran, do as much ibadat, and so on and so forth. Then you have, for example, um, young parents. Young parents, especially in this climate, is very difficult to look after kids, and I'm sure uh, many of the parents feel this way as well, where it's fasting and keeping the kids entertained, and then by the time they go to sleep, you're knackered, tired. You don't have the strength to stay up, so you need to get some rest before they wake up. So you have to like try and compromise a lot of ibadat, especially during the night time, where you have to try and re-energize rather than stay up and pray and perform dua. um, there's a lot of reasons now. Don't it's very important for the viewers to understand that we shouldn't get mixed up between not doing ibadat and believing that's the only way of me gaining reward rather than me adhering to my responsibilities. There's a difference between the two. There's a world of a difference. Ibadah can, manifest itself me standing on the musalla and praying and, engaging in dua. But me adhering to my responsibilities as a parent, looking after my children, playing with them, just keeping them entertained for God knows how many hours, all of that can be considered to be as ibadah as well. So who
Certainly.
knows? You're getting rewarded for just playing with your kids, being there, listening to your kids. You're getting rewarded for that. Reward is not just something that has to be channeled through salah and dua, right? So that's very, very important to keep in mind. So if you're feeling gutted, even after all of this, if you're feeling gutted, for example, that you've not done much, well, you still have 2 days. Yeah, technically, you still have 2 days to try and get as much done as possible. Best thing that you could do is go through the sermon of the Holy Prophet when he talks about the Ramadan and use that as a checklist, right? Try and do as much as possible before the end of the month of Ramadan, before the coming of Eid, right?
Ahsan.
So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Chair. That
Awesome.
that was quite interesting, especially having the positive mindset. It's all in there. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has blessed us with so much, and
Oh, yeah,
sometimes it's
yeah.
just being cognizant of that and appreciating that. You know what? We may have already done actions that Allah has constituted as ibadat. So thank you. I guess this question is now a follow up from the discussion that we had. Um, for the benefit of the viewers and for my own personal benefit, it would be really useful to understand some personal aspects from your own kind of actions or from your own life that you feel that maybe this is one thing or this is two things that I really kind of benefited from. And then this is something that I can kind of continue, something that we can use as an example, a practical application. I appreciate it might be a personal question, which is obviously a relationship between you and Allah. But if there's any insight that you can give as an example of practical application that you may be thinking to continue with, I think that would be quite beneficial for us to at least get a hook to understand.
You know, that's a very interesting question because I was just thinking about this morning. Um, you know, I as an individual, I wake up every morning and I need to have my cup of coffee. I need to get that caffeine kick in. But then I realize, I've gone an entire month without drinking a cup of coffee, right? In the mornings, especially the mornings when I wake up, and I'm perfectly fine,
Mhm.
right? Okay, you get that, caffeine. What's the word? You're deprived of that caffeine, and then you get that kick, and then you get, okay, but then you move on. You move on from there, and then you realize that no, you don't need to be reliant on caffeine to survive throughout the day, right? Whereas when you look at the rest of the world, everyone needs a cup of coffee every, I don't know, every hour, every couple of hours to try and keep going. And Ramadan is a big wake up call that no, you don't need to stuff your body with drugs just to try and get through the day, right? And Ramadan is a beautiful time for you to reflect on this. Eating, my God, uh, we eat so much. Every moment throughout the day, there's always something between our teeth, right? Especially now in this climate where people are bored sitting at home. Whenever there's boredom, there's usually people eating, right? Um, when you come through the month of Ramadan, when you enter it and you pass the days, you realize that no, I'm not someone who succumbs to eating and drinking. In fact, you even become stronger. Your body becomes stronger just refraining from food. And that's interesting because, Imam Zain al-Abidin talks about this in Risalat al-Hukuk, where he says that the rights of your stomach is to try and understand that food is a fuel. Food is not, it's also a desire. There's no doubt in that. Food is one of the best desires that we have, one of the greatest desires that we have. You look at the human being, you can't eat the same meal, for every single day. You need variations. Um, but the Imam beautifully he talks about this. He says that food is a fuel. It's so that you turn to God and you worship God. Again, it doesn't mean you worship God sitting on the musalla. It means that you go, you earn a living, spend time with your family. You go out, spend time with your friends, do tabligh, do da'wah, whatever it is. All of that comes under the umbrella of ibadah. But food is a fuel to this. And when you change your mindset, when you change the way your mentality and how you interpret food, rather than it being a desire, than it being a fuel, then you realize, okay, I'm not bound to food. Food is just a means to a purpose, a means to an end. Um, I think one of the greatest lessons we can learn from Ramadan is try and eat less. We've already habituated ourselves from eating less, especially during these long hours of fasting, right? Imagine if we were in the winter months, then it's very easy. The fastings are very short, and a person can eat throughout the night. Whereas in these long hours, you'll have a person who eats, a main meal for the whole day, and a few snacks here and there, and that's enough for you to get through the day. That's enough for you to survive. In comparison to the contrasting, the belief that you need 3 meals a day, you need to wake up and have a heavy breakfast. This is what we're taught. This is what we're taught in school, that you need to have a very heavy breakfast to get through the day. No, you don't. Fasting has proven that I don't need a heavy breakfast to get through the day. fasting, just staying away from food and drink for you know a great part of the day has proven to be stronger for me, has made me stronger physically, not only physically but spiritually as well, right? So I think that's the personal lesson that I learned from Ramadan. It's something that I become mindful of, but then obviously that doesn't last very long. Um, lasts for about a week, 2 weeks, and then we go back to square one, really.
Well, that's an interesting point you mentioned, um, especially with the analogy of coffee and food, and heavy breakfast. And I think it comes down to willpower, doesn't it? That
Yeah, it
if
does,
you can stay
absolutely.
away from coffee or any practical or spiritual vices for a month, then what's to say that you can't continue that? But
Wow.
which actually lends us to another question that I have received. So I'm perfectly timed. So this question is about willpower, something that you touched just on your personal reflection. The question is: once we stop fasting, our willpower will dwindle when we go back to routine. Like when you make a New Year's resolution, and after a few months, the trend is that people give up. So how is it that you keep up the willpower if you're not fasting?
Oof. Okay, so when it comes to the month of Ramadan, um, it's a month of breaking habits and creating new ones, right? And you're given 30 days to do that. And that's a fairly long time, right? 30 days is plenty of time to adhere to a new habit,
Mm,
to break old habits, to refrain from sins that you're, you know, consistently familiar with, and just distancing yourself from that particular sin. And, or for example, taking on new habits or taking on new acts of ibadah that you wouldn't naturally do outside the month of Ramadan. Rather than, when a person leaves the month of Ramadan, rather than focusing on how to change your life and do new things, sometimes we have this mindset where, especially throughout the month of Ramadan, towards the end of the month of Ramadan, when you're physically weak, you say to yourself, okay, you know what? When I start eating and drinking outside the month of Ramadan, then I'm gonna start reciting Quran. Right? I didn't have the tawfiq to recite Quran throughout the month of Ramadan, but outside, when I enter the month of Shawwal, I'm gonna start doing that. I'll do a sipara a day. Rather than focusing on new things or trying to make a promise to adhere to new actions outside of the month of Ramadan, why don't you bank on that which you've already started, right? This is a month of spirituality. There is God's hand at play in this month, and there are certain things that has changed in all our lives. So rather than creating new habits outside of the month of Ramadan, why don't we take the habits that we've changed within the month and try and act on it, right? Even if it may be little. And I'm a very, strong advocate of this. Do not try and do so many things all at once in large quantities. So, for example, if we go back to this Quran example, um, rather than making a promise and a commitment to say, I'm going to recite a Sipara a day, a Sipara a day is like 20 pages, right? Okay, you'll do it once, you'll do it twice, three times, then you won't be able to continue it. If you make the commitment to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to do a page, half a
mm,
page, I'm going to work on, you know, a paragraph of the Holy Quran, um, that's more than enough. Little goes a long way. When you're
manageable goals.
habituated, manageable goals, exactly. So when you're able to do little manageable goals and then you habituate yourself to that, you can then take on new goals and you can increase that uh, later on when you're comfortable with what um, you've committed to. So when it comes to the month of Ramadan, there are definitely certain things that we've habituated ourselves to, right? And I'm not talking about sleeping at crazy hours in the night. I'm talking about good actions that we've managed to change in our lives.
Yeah,
Eating less, for example, reciting Quran, reciting a dua. And this goes against, it goes back to the idea that a little does go a long way, right? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, the best of amal is not the amal which you do in terms of quantity, it's the amal that you do in terms of quality. aswabakum, as he says. Yeah, it's the quality of the action that's important. So you could recite 3 lines of the Holy Quran and gain a lot from it, then do 20 pages and gain nothing from it.
Very valid point.
Right?
Yeah. So
Ahsan.
manageable targets and focus on the quality.
Yeah,
Start small and then build it up. It's just like a muscle in the gym, right? Like you wouldn't go bench 200-300 kilograms. You'll
exactly,
start
exactly.
small. You'll kind of build it up and add weights as
Ahsant.
you progress.
Brilliant
Brilliant.
example. Yeah. Cold
Jazakallah.
turkey never works. Cold turkey
Mm,
is only exclusive for uh, a handful of people in humanity, a very small percentage. It works for a very small percentage, but for the majority of us, it never works.
yeah.
So it's always nice to build it up.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We received a question on our live feed from a community member.
Right.
The question is, if you have crossed 65 years, and are you still liable for wajib fasts?
So it's a common question with regards to the elderly. The ruling is that a person who is an elder is not required to fast.
Okay.
But the age limit isn't given, right?
Mm,
Usually the age is never given. So this is something that is going back to the conventional understanding of the community. What's considered to be an elder? 65, I don't think is considered to be an elderly. I know many 65-year-olds who are very fit, very active. You're looking at probably about 75 onwards. Yeah, unless of course this particular 65-year-old has certain health problems
right.
where they are needed to be on medication, then obviously they shouldn't be fasting in the first place. But when you're
Yeah.
talking about generally the elderly, you're referring to someone who is over 75, usually.
Fine. So rather than age limit, there's more like health conditions or any other personal conditions
Yeah,
that may prevent someone to fast.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Okay. Thank
yeah.
you for that. Well, we've covered a fair amount today, from
Alhamdulillah.
defining and describing what we mean by spirituality as a state, to what we may have gained from the month of Ramadan, to also personal actions and small targets. So it seems that we've covered a wide breadth of items within the topic. So,
Alhamdulillah.
Sheikh, if would you be able to now kind of perhaps provide any concluding remarks, and help cover the topic off? The discussion is how to continue the spirituality gained in the month of Ramadan, and then inshallah we'll go towards our guest for the manqabat.
Ahsan. So it goes back to my last, previous answer. A little definitely goes a long way. Whatever you've done, and it's different for every one of us, whatever you've seen yourself consistently perform day in, day out in the month of Ramadan, try and keep that up. Try and keep it up, whether it's reciting dua, whether it's reciting Quran. I know many youths and many children in the community have actively engaged in Quran Kani. That's something beautiful. Parents, you should really encourage your children to recite the Quran. Doesn't even have to be half an hour or an hour a day. It could be 5 minutes. Try and keep it up as much as possible. The recitation of the Quran is absolutely needed for all of us. It is it's what makes Laylatul Qadr, right? If the night, if time is sanctified in such a way that it's greater than 1,000 months, imagine the impact it can have in our lives if we build that relationship with the Quran. So whatever habits that you've created in the month of Ramadan, try and keep it up as much as possible. Don't focus on the quantity, focus more on the quality of it as well.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
accent.
perfectly concluded. Thank you so much, Sheikh,
Thank you, Mohammed.
for your time, and for the engaging discussion that you
Nah, pleasure.
provided.
Always a pleasure.
Inshallah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to
Inshallah.
provide you with many, many more opportunities, of such opportunities, and enable us to kind of benefit from knowledge and wisdom from yourself,
Inshallah. And many more
many a
to come,
times.
inshallah.
Inshallah, we look forward to it. Thank you
Ahsant.
so much for your time, Sheikh.
Ahsant. Ahsant.
Um,
And yours
and,
too.
and Jazakallah, thank you. And this is for the community. We now will be going towards the manqabat recitation from a very dear local reciter, whose identity I'll keep revealed just for the next 30 seconds. But whilst the manqabat reciter will be enchanting us with his beautiful recitation. If you can kindly, in a one line, summarize or perhaps state in a sentence what's the most powerful thing that you've learned, I think that would be quite encouraging and will be a great grounds for learning from each other. So for example, I'm more than happy to go from to lead the way. I think one thing that I'll take from today's session is cold turkey never works. Definitely start off small. So if there's anything that you feel that you've gained in the month of Ramadan, then kind of just like a small muscle, practice it and build upon it rather than giving it your 100%. So that's something that I'll kind of continue and focus on one thing, but focus on the quality. And likewise, if you can summarize in one sentence, then that would keep this chat very engaging. I believe you now have all realized who our secret reciter is. It's a reciter that has graced us with his voice plenty of times in the speakers of Majid al-Hussein, and we now have the honor for him to grace the speakers of your devices in the live YouTube channel. Tawseef Hassan Bajani, Salamun Alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I love how you kept the viewers at the edge of their seat for my great review.
Well, I think the YouTube might have given it away because your blessed face was came in quite early. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed my introduction.
Very good, thank you.
Well, Tawseef, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Really honored to have you here, and really looking forward to hear some melodious recitation. I certainly have missed your recitations this month.
You could always go onto the YouTube link and you can put my name and you'll find all the recitations on there.
I'm sure a famous reciter like you has littered YouTube with plenty of videos, but it's always something different when it comes live. So Tawseef, what is it that you'll be presenting to us today?
So we're living in such times at the moment that we're all yearning to go to the shrines of Imam Hussein, and we can't visit him at the moment. So my first qasida is more of a dua, and inshallah we'll get the opportunity to go to Karbala. So without further ado,
brilliantly timed, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum.
Ya Rabbi haq Zahra तौफीक ये अता हो मरने से पहले यारा दीदार करबला हो या रब हक ज़हरा तौफीक ये अता हो मरने से पहले यारा दीदार करबला हो जो अर्ज़ करबला है हर अर्द से जुदा है इस खाक करबला में शह का लहू मिला है शह का लहू मिला है हर ला दवा मर्ज़ की ये खाक ही दवा है मरने से पहले यारा दीदार करबला हो या रब हक ज़हरा तौफीक ये अता हो मरने से पहले यारा दीदार करबला हो है वास्ता हसन का कासिम से गुल बदन का अब्बास से खुश सुखन का अनवार पंजतन का अनवार पंजतन का दुनिया के मुश्किलों में कोई न मुब्तला हो मरने से पहले यारा दीदार करबला हो है वास्ता खुदा का अब्बास की वफा का बीमार करबला का ज़ैनब की रिदा का ज़ैनब की रिदा का जो है असीर मौला अब जल्द से रिहा हो मरने से पहले यारा دیدار کربلا ہو یا رب حق زہرا توفیق عطا ہو مرنے سے پہلے یا رب دیدار کربلا ہو.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
وعجل فرجهم.
So I'll recite just a quick second qasida as well. And
Please
this will
do.
definitely make Muhammad Ali go wawa. So,
Yeah.
and what better way to end the session than with the Fidal of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So please
Bismillah.
recite Allah Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
ہمت تھی کس میں در خیبر کو کھارے
واہ.
ہمت تھی کس میں در خیبر کو کھارے انتر کو کرے زیر تو مرحب کو پچھارے گہوار میں لیتے ہوئے اجگر کو بپھارے ڈوبے ہے سورج کو جور مغرب سے ابھارے یہ کون عجائب کا منظر کون ولی ہے یہ مولا علی مولا علی مولا علی ہے یہ مولا علی ہے یہ مولا علی ہے یہ مولا علی ہے ہجرت کی رات جان محمد پہ بنی ہے ایک جان ہے خطرے میں تو ایک جان بچی ہے بستر پہ ہے کوئی ہمراہ نبی ہے دشمن یہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ چادر میں نبی ہے کون ہے بستر پہ جو ہم شکل نبی ہے یہ مولا علی مولا علی مولا علی ہے
نعرہ حیدری
مولا علی
یا علی
یہ مولا علی ہے یہ مولا علی ہے یہ مولا علی ہے یہ مولا علی ہے. دعا محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Thank you so much, Tawsif, for the two very melodious recitations, the Munajat and the Qasid of Imam Ali alayhi salam. With that, we will end today's interactive session, organized by the Bahlul Society. To our dear viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Let us all raise our hands in unison to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate us from this global pandemic, those that have been affected financially, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise, to help everyone. And finally, to allow us to continue with whatever that we may have gained from this beautiful month, especially spiritually, to continue for the rest of the year and inshallah for the rest of our lives. And finally, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the 12th Imam al-Zamana Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraja, and so that when he does come, that we are part of his ashab and his ansar. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أحسنت.